today just wanted to do a quick lesson about XY conjunctions, and I just mean very common patterns which we see in English where we're comparing two elements, X and Y, and we're comparing two elements which should be of equal weight, and therefore it's very important to remember parallelism. If you don't know what I'm talking about, please watch some of my lessons on parallelism and you'll see exactly what I mean. Basically, it's about using the same kinds of words when you're comparing them. When you're comparing two things, they ought to be the same sorts of words. They ought to be both adjectives or both clauses, similar clauses, or both passive or constructions or something like that, and I hope to show you that this is what we see. But I've just made a list here of some positive ones. Just as X, so Y, and I mentioned this in my last lesson, so I won't go into this one in detail. But you could have both X and Y, whether X or Y, either X or Y, the same to X as to Y, more X than Y, the X, the Y, yeah, this is like the bigger the better, or the sooner we get there, the better we'll feel, or whatever it is. X is to Y what W is to Z. To mistake X for Y, or to think of X as Y. So notice here we've got actually four elements. We've got W and Z and X and Y. And we've also got these negative ones. Neither X nor Y, not X but Y. Now with these negative ones it is possible to use inversion. We can invert the auxiliary verb and the subject. Not only did I blah 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 blah, but also I blah blah blah. Did I, yeah? Or not only have I, or not only would I. So we often see inversion in these ones, and it sounds very good to use it. Please use it with the negative forms. And also remember subject-verb agreement. I've done another lesson on this where I talk about what form of the verb follows after a sentence like this. Neither my teachers nor my friends. Obviously it will be plural in that situation, but what about when we have a singular one here and a plural one there? Well, I go into detail in another lesson about that, so please watch that lesson if you're interested in the verb agreement. It's definitely worth thinking about. But if you're using these conjunctions, it really makes a big difference to your language. The more that you use, the better your language will sound. Notice that I'm using one right there. And when you look at a lot of clever things that people have said, you will notice that they are using these conjunctions and that they're using them with parallel forms. So I just took some just to show you today, because I don't want to go through each and every one giving an example. You'll see these examples everywhere, and you can find hundreds of them if you just put them into Google. But have a look at some which I've found here. This one is from Martin Luther. You're not only responsible for what you say, but also for what you do not say. Now notice the parallelism, please, for what you say, for what you do not say. They're identical except for a not and an auxiliary verb, for what you don't say. And that's what makes it sound very nice, the parallel structures, the parallel clauses. However, I do want to remind you that we could have put the not only here and said, not only are you responsible for what you say, but also you are responsible for what you do not say. However, he has chosen to put it this side so that this just repeats in a nice, short, clear clause. And it probably sounds better. But if you put it there, you can invert. You can say, not only are you, okay? This one's from Shakespeare, I believe. Neither a lender nor a borrower be. Notice the lender, the borrower. You might ask, why be, Dave? Why is it not neither be a lender nor a borrower? Why do you put the be at the end? Well, again, it's a kind of inversion. Neither a lender nor a borrower be. Okay, so we've inverted because we started with a negative. Okay, the next one. Just as houses are made of stone, so science is made of facts, or so is science. So you could do either here. You could invert or not, but they have inverted. This was Henri Poincaré. I'm not sure how to pronounce his name. He was a physicist, and so he said just as houses are made of stone. Notice the are are made and the is made. Yeah, I mean, it's parallelism again, and it's of stone, of facts, so it's nice and parallel. That's why it sounds so nice. But yes, we could say so is science, or we could say so science is. Both are correct here. Okay, the next one is Edmund Burke. Flattery corrupts both the receiver and the giver. Very clear parallelism, both the receiver and the giver. On to the next one. When I was young, I could remember anything, whether it happened or not. So here we have got ellipsis. That's another thing to remember concerning these parts. Ellipsis, which means missing out words. And usually we replace them with an auxiliary verb. Here we're just replacing the negative sentence with a not. Whether it happened or it didn't happen. Whether it happened or not. So please be aware of ellipsis. This was Mark Twain, by the way. And lastly, politeness is to human nature what warmth is to wax. I tried to get an example of this one. It's quite common. Politeness is to human nature what warmth is to wax. Okay? We've got very clear nouns being compared here, and this last one was Schopenhauer. I'm not sure though that he was a particularly polite man, but this is what he said. Okay, so please remember these rules. I've just done this lesson just to remind you about parallelism and to remind you about how much it can improve your language when you think about it and pay attention to it. So please, if you have any comments about any of this, put them under the video. I hope that's helped in some kind of way, and I hope to see you all soon.